My brothers and sisters, I hope you are well this evening. Thank you for tuning in. I want to give a shout out to anybody who's new to the channel. Welcome to you. I pray that by worshiping the Lord with us and sitting under His Word and learning of Him, that you are edified and that you grow in your Christian faith. All right? So thank you for joining us. Here's our Bible study for this evening. Saints, buckle in. You ready? Bible study. Every once in a while, I'd like to do what is called a character study. What's a character study? A character study is a deeper dive, a deeper look into a particular person, right? A life of a particular person in the scriptures. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a deeper look into the person of Solomon. Solomon was an interesting person, wasn't he? To me, very intriguing, interesting person. That's what we're going to look at. So here is Solomon for us this evening. Solomon, who was he? Anybody know?
David's son.
The second son of who?
King David.
David and Bathsheba. Exactly. So that's who Solomon is. Solomon is the second son of David and Bathsheba. You know that his first son went home to be with the Lord. That was a product of an adulterous affair that David had with Bathsheba. Solomon is the second born to David and Bathsheba. When David was an old man, he gave his son Solomon this godly advice. It's listed for us, we're told, in 1 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 9. Listen to this advice, it's beautiful. As for you, my son Solomon, David says, know the God of your father and serve him with a loyal heart and with a willing mind. For the Lord searches all hearts and understands all the intent of the thoughts. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will cast you off forever. That's 1 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 9. Notice with me, David told Solomon, do these three things. Listen, do these three things. This is super great advice, godly advice. Know the Lord, serve the Lord, seek the Lord. Underline that in that verse. Parents, please listen to me. The best godly advice that you can pass on to your children is know the Lord, serve the Lord, and seek the Lord. Later, as King David's getting ready to die, and to pass on the crown to his son Solomon, he tells him this in 1 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. Also really good advice here. Solomon, be strong and prove yourself a man. So he's going to tell his son, this is what a man looks like. David's going to spell it out for him. He keeps the charge of the Lord his God, to walk in his ways, to keep his commandments, his judgments, and his testimonies. Do this that you may prosper in all that you do and wherever you turn. Man, good father, good godly advice. Now, King Solomon, listen at this. He had humble beginnings. Check this. The Lord appeared to him in a dream, and he said, whatever you wish, whatever you ask for, I will give it to you. So imagine the Lord giving you a blank check. That's exactly what he did with King Solomon. He said, Solomon, whatever you ask of me, I will do it for you. This is what Solomon said. I love what he said. Here it is. I'm like a little child who doesn't know his way around. And here I am in the midst of your chosen people, a nation so great and numerous, they cannot be counted. Give me an understanding heart so that I can govern your people well and know the difference between right and wrong. For who by himself is able to govern this great people of yours? The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for wisdom. Listen, pastor, person in leadership, this is a great prayer to ask of the Lord. Lord, give me an understanding heart. Lord, help me to guide your people well. Lord, help me not to depend on my own wisdom, on my own strength, on my own knowledge to guide your people. Help me to have a complete reliance upon you. That's a good prayer. That's something I ask the Lord all the time. Then the Lord said to him, here's the Lord's reply to Solomon. Saints, you loving this? Mm-hmm. Right? Check this. Because you have asked for wisdom in governing my people with justice and have not asked for a long life or wealth or the death of your enemies, I will give you what you asked for. I will give you a wise and understanding heart, Solomon, such as no one has ever had. And also, besides this, I will give you what you did not ask for, riches and fame. No other king in the entire world will be compared to you for the rest of your life. Notice what the Lord did. The request of Solomon honored the Lord, honored his heart. It wasn't self-seeking. It wasn't self-absorbed what he was asking for. It was for wisdom to govern his people well. The Lord gave him that, plus he honored him with riches and fame. King Solomon is perhaps the second wisest man who's ever lived. Question: who is the wisest man who's ever lived?
Jesus.
Jesus. He is the wisest person who's ever lived on the face of this earth.
I felt like one of the kids when they're asked a question.
No, I
they
know,
just
it's
say,
an easy
Jesus,
question.
Jesus
Yeah.
is always the answer. Jesus.
Jesus is always the answer. They're right. Listen to the kids. They're always right. Jesus is always the answer. Okay, here. Now, the questions get a little bit more difficult. What 3 books of the Bible did Solomon write?
Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, and Proverbs.
Okay, good. Well, you guys are good students, I think. Solomon wrote, listen, 3,000 Proverbs, 1,005 songs, okay? His wisdom was put to the test immediately after the Lord said, I will give you wisdom. So isn't that interesting, right? He asked for wisdom and immediately the test comes. Here's the test. 2 women came before the throne. These 2 women live in the same house. They had given birth to 2 baby boys. In the middle of the night, while they were sleeping, one woman rolls over onto her baby boy, smothering him. Well, the woman's solution to the problem is to swap her dead baby with the living baby. So now these 2 women come to the throne, obviously both wanting the baby. They both want the live baby. But who is the real mother is the question for King Solomon. This is what King Solomon does. He says, get me the sword, I will cut the baby in half, and each of you can have half a baby. The real mom, of course, protests and says, please let the baby live and give the baby to her. While the other woman is saying, arguing, can you believe it? Cut the baby in half. So it's easy to figure out, after Solomon said he'd cut the baby in half, easy to figure out who the real mom is, right? Obviously the one who wants her son alive. Solomon was wise. Solomon was wise, undisputably wise. People came from all over the world to listen to his wisdom. We are still today, right, benefiting from the wisdom of Solomon. When I read the book of Proverbs or Ecclesiastes, these are not doctrinal books. These are poetic books, right? These are the poetic books of the Bible. There's still so much wisdom in all of these books that he's written that are so good. Solomon knew about weather patterns, ecosystem, hydrosystems, migratory patterns, species of trees and animals. He was an ichthyologist, the study of fish. He knew all about fish. He was a botanist, the study of plants. He was a zoologist, the study of animals. He was an entomologist, the study of insects. He was an ornithologist, the study of birds. He was an orthodontist. He put braces on people. Joke.
He was a polygamist.
And he was a polygamist. We're going to get to that in a second. Come on, girl. See, these girls know their Bible. Listen, 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 31 through 34 says this. We're told, again, that people from all over the nations, kings and queens, came to hear the wisdom of Solomon. King Solomon was not only the wisest man who's ever lived, also the wealthiest man who's ever lived. During his rule, check this, silver was like dirt. Can you imagine silver being like dirt? Gold was everywhere, was used for currency, for trade. Gold shields, solid gold shields were made for his guards, 200 of them. Doors were overlaid with gold. His throne was overlaid with gold. At his table daily were hundreds of loaves of bread, hundreds of oxen slaughtered a day for him and his servants. He had merchants, and after they had imported so much gold, he actually started importing exotic animals, boatloads of peacocks, boatloads of, get it, monkeys. He had 40,000 stalls for his horses, 12,000 horsemen, chariots. What does that mean in our vernacular? In our vernacular, it doesn't mean anything, right? Because we can't make the association there. Horses, stalls, that doesn't sound like anything to us. But listen, it means that he had Lamborghinis, he had Bentleys, he had Rolls Royces to spare. That was the highest of transportations in that day, the costliest of transportation in that day. Solomon had unimaginable wisdom and unimaginable wealth. That's his rise. Now we're going to learn from his demise. This is our Bible study. This is where I want you to really kind of focus right now. The rise and demise of Solomon. Rise and demise. That's the title of this message for you. I hope it encourages your heart. Here's his demise. Number one, there's a prohibition in Deuteronomy chapter 17 that said when God set up a king over Israel, that king was not to multiply horses, wives, gold, and silver for himself. God said to Solomon, I will bless you and give you these things. Solomon, listen, don't seek these things for yourself. The same prohibition is given to us in the New Testament. Listen to what Jesus said. He said, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and thieves break in and steal. But lay up rather for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Jesus says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. All these things shall be added unto us. So here's the deal, guys. Both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, there's a prohibition, a warning against covetousness. That's a warning to us. What will be your demise? Number one, the same demise that was Solomon's will be yours and ours if we don't guard our hearts. Covetousness, the pursuit of money, making money, having money, the power that money brings, and position, the love of money. How many people have ruined their lives because of dinero, chavos, money? How many wars are fought over money? Drugs, drug lords, cartels, human trafficking, modern day slavery. It's all about money. All these gang violence and all this stuff, it's all about money. It's all about territory where they make money. If you infiltrate my territory, there's going to be a war. There's going to be bloodshed. It's all about money. How many pastors, and entire ministries have gone completely sideways because of dinero? What was Solomon's demise can be anybody's demise. It could be my demise. It could be your demise. Number one. Number two, here it is. These are tragic verses in the Bible. 1 Kings 11, verses 3 and 4. As I said before, Solomon had 700 wives, 300 concubines. You know what these wives did? They turned away his heart from the Lord. And it says this, for it was so when Solomon was old that his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not loyal to the Lord his God, as was the heart of his father David. The same prohibition, again, is given to us in the New Testament. Listen, if it flows from the Old Testament to the New Testament, we better pay heed. Some prohibitions are only for the Old Testament. Like, for instance, don't eat bats. Now, I don't know who would eat bats, but there's a prohibition in the Old Testament, don't eat bats. In the New Testament, there's no such prohibition, right? Everything is sanctified and blessed before the Lord. You're free to eat bats if you'd like. If the Bible never says don't eat bats, I'm never eating bats anyway. Okay, but that prohibition doesn't follow into the New Testament. Here's another warning for us. Listen, the company you keep, saints, please listen to me. These things are so important. This will be your demise. It could be the demise of an entire congregation of thousands of people. Here it is. The company you keep can prove corrosive to your soul and spirit. I know what I'm talking about. I've seen this happen again and again and again, where saints do not watch who they're hanging out with, fellowshipping with, and spending time with. The Bible says this: evil communications, evil company corrupts good morals. You will become like the people that you hang out with. Listen to what it says, Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20. Solomon wrote this: become wise by walking with the wise. Hang out with fools and watch your life fall to pieces. You want to know something? I am watching personally lives fall to pieces because the people that I love, are hanging out with fools and their life is falling to pieces. Lastly, here's a third area of demise. Solomon's demise can become our demise. It's the rise and demise of Solomon. The area of Solomon's strength became his very weakness. Solomon is known for his wisdom, and yet he becomes a fool. At the end of his life, he's a fool. It's interesting, here it is, saints, that oftentimes the area of one's strength also becomes the area of one's weakness. His strength was wisdom. What did he do? He started to rely on his own understanding, on his own wisdom. He started to ignore the word of God because, hey, I got this. I'm a wise man. And so I'm going to add wives to myself. I'm going to add gold to myself. I'm going to disobey the Lord and start relying on my own wisdom. He's not the only one that fell in the area where he was the strongest. Listen, Abraham, known for his faith, faltered in his faith when he took Hagar and had a son by her. You know what happened to Abraham? The same thing that happens to you and I. We get tired of waiting. Aren't you tired of waiting? How long have you waited? Do you have something so important to you, so dear and near to your heart, that you're waiting and you're asking God and you're waiting and you're trusting the Lord? I have gotten tired of trusting the Lord. I have gotten tired of waiting on the Lord. And there's a big temptation in my flesh to say, enough, I'm going to handle this situation instead of waiting on God. Oh, listen, the area of Abraham's strength was his faith. That was the same area where he failed because he got tired of waiting and trusting in the Lord. The same thing can happen to us. Moses, the meekest, most gentlest man on the face of the earth. Where do we see him falling? He lost his temper. The area of his strength, his meekness, became the area where he fell. He lost his temper. He smote the rock. Instead of speaking to the rock, you know that story in the desert. Now, saints, listen at this. What is the area of your strength? Where is the area in your life that you say, I don't need to rely upon God. I got money. I got health. I got relationships. I got whatever you got. Be careful. The area of your strength becomes your weakness. You say, you know what? I don't struggle with sexual temptation. I don't struggle with pride. I don't struggle with whatever. Be careful. I'm going to tell you this. You've heard me say this before. I'm exceedingly weak. I put no confidence in the flesh. I have learned through the 30 plus years of following the Lord that I cannot rely on my own strength, on my own wisdom. And it is a privilege for me to admit that I'm broken, that I'm weak, that I'm a failure, and that I need Jesus for everything. For the very air that I breathe, I need Jesus for absolutely everything. Peter. What's Peter's greatest asset? His courage. Come on. Peter had guts. What kind of a man in the middle of a storm says to the Lord, Lord, if it be thou, bid me to come to you on the water? Okay? None of those other guys was going to even dare ask that they can go out walking to the Lord on the water. This man had courage. He had courage. Oh, but you know something? He becomes a coward, doesn't he? Why? Because his strength became his weakness. When a little girl comes to him and identifies him as one who was walking with Jesus, Peter falls in the area in which he was the strongest. Why is that? Why is that? Why does that happen? Listen, I told you, because in the area that we are the strongest, we are less dependent upon the Lord. I don't need the Lord in this area. I got it. And then you know what happens? We fall. We fall flat on our faces. And then here's the other thing. In the area that we're weak, there's deep reliance upon the Lord. So our weakness is actually the greatest virtue that you can have. Weakness. I've spoken about this before. weakness is the greatest virtue that I possess. I'm so weak, and there's a freedom in expressing that to other people and admitting that to other people. I don't have to put on a facade, walk around in false humility, pretending to be something that I'm not, walking around in hypocrisy. The Lord hates all that. He hates all that. I want to hate what the Lord hates. It is what it is. I'm weak and I'm a failure and I need Jesus. So the areas that are unguarded become the areas that are the most susceptible. Solomon was wise, yet what happened? He was deceived, he was fooled, he was bamboozled. This is what we read in 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 3. We're going to close here. Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of his father David, except, oh man, that word, except, that he sacrificed and burned incense at the high places. My dear friends, I want to leave you with this question. What are the excepts in your life? You love the Lord, except you have this secret sin. I love the Lord, except I have this private life over here that nobody knows about. I love the Lord, but I'm trusting my own wisdom as to who I'm going to hang out with. I love the Lord, fill in the blank. What is your except? I love the Lord, but I'm fearful. I love the Lord, but I'm doubtful. I love the Lord, but I don't know how to trust him. I love the Lord, but I can't trust him. I love the Lord, but I'm impatient. There's so many excepts. What is that area of your life where you say, I love the Lord except? Be careful. Get rid of whatever except you have in your life and love the Lord with all your heart. Serve the Lord and seek the Lord. May the Lord richly, richly bless you. Now listen, take time, meditate on these things. Ask the Lord to help you. Also take time to RSVP.
Oh.
You see what I did there?
Yes, I do.
You see? Okay, so also make time to RSVP so we could properly plan a feast for this Saturday so we can enjoy a very good meal together in fellowship. Make sure that you plan to stay after communion to have dinner with us. All right? May the Lord richly bless you this week as you fellowship with him.